Gugu Sithole is bold personified.
It's been a passion of mine, to be able to help and empower, however way that I can. There are people that love and appreciate the outdoors, but they don't necessarily want to get their hands dirty. Who said to me, "Never look back. This is for you."
While many judged her decision to leave a well-paying job to follow an uncharted path, she knew that her love for travel was something she could no longer leave on the back burner.
My name is Gugu Sithole. I am the founder and CEO of Glamping Adventures.
This is her story.
I was born in KZN in a village called Engutu. And then later moved to Johannesburg, I think during my formative years. Went to primary school as well as high school in Johannesburg. I've lived in Soweto all my life. I was raised by my grandmother, who was a force. She was a businesswoman, and unknowingly so, because, she was just known as Ugogo Tungayo. So, my grandmother was a fashion designer, and I think that's where my business and entrepreneurial spirit came from. I watched her raising a family, her immediate family, as well as, everybody else, the village, with what she was making as a designer, as a dressmaker, as Ugogo Tungayo. So I was really inspired by her. She lost her husband just as they moved from Johannesburg to KZN, and she decided to stay in KZN and to raise her family there, and got rooted in KZN. So I watched her a force. I watched her, as a single woman raising not only her children but her relatives. It was a time of turmoil in Johannesburg, in Soweto, during the 1976 uprisings. I wasn't even born at that time. And it was that decision, it was the turmoil that actually informed the decision to move to KZN and raise the children in a much better, politically mild and sound environment. So I really look up to her. And when she's really supported me, and she's the one that really supported my travel bug, from a very young age. The stories that she'd tell, about me when I was saying that I'm traveling to this place, and then she would link it to when I was younger. For instance, like the story that I like telling. When I was 3, I almost ran away from home. So my uncle and aunt, who had visited KZN during the December holidays, were leaving, going back to work in Johannesburg. And while they were saying their goodbyes, everybody realized that little Gugu was nowhere to be found. And a search ensued, and they could not find me. And eventually it was decided that the young couple should leave for Johannesburg before they missed their bus. And at the bus stop, as they were walking towards the bus stop, guess who was there? It was little Gugu carrying a little OK Checkers. At that time, Checkers was a plastic bag. So it was an OK branded plastic bag full of clothes. And they say to me, at 3 years old, I was very impatient and very upset that they were taking long, because we were going to miss our bus to Johannesburg. And in the end, I did not make it to Johannesburg that day. I was taken back home. But I think it started there, the yearn for distant places. I'd heard about this Johannesburg, the city of gold with lights, and I so much wanted to be a part of it. And it would later, sort of like as the story unfolds, I would really realize where my travel bug, where my entrepreneurial spirit, came from. It was born from that little village in KZN, but it was also nurtured by women. My grandmother, my mother, who said to me, never look back, this is for you. When I finished matric, I would then tell my primary caregivers, which was my mother and my grandmother, that I was actually going to take a gap year and travel. I had decided that I was going to the States for a year. And it would literally break the family apart because we did not have relatives in the States. Nobody in my family had ever been in a plane. And this child is telling us that she's leaving, and it would take the two women in my family, my grandmother and my mom, who would say to me, you need to close off all these noises and you need to follow your heart. You need to do what you want to do. You have obviously done the research. We are happy. Go. So they let me go. And I think that year I used it to sort of like discover who I was, who I really wanted to do. I was working for the first time in my life. I had an opportunity to meet people from all sorts of backgrounds, from the United States, from Russia, South Africa, to Australia, while working, at the summer camp that I was working on, and later at other places. So I came back home, and of course the expectation was, you've done your year of finding yourself, you need to now go to school. And funny enough, I'd still not decided what I wanted to study. And I remember saying to my mom, I don't know what I want to do still. Can I just try and find a job? My mom was like, with only a matric, what quality job are you going to find? We suggest that you go to school and prepare yourself for the job market. So I reluctantly went and registered for a marketing qualifications with UNISA. I started studying, but while I studied, then I was lucky enough to find a job. So I've never really had that, campus life full time. So I studied long distance while working. I found myself, my first job ever was working as an events assistant while I was pursuing my marketing qualification. I was content. I would find out, later that it was really in line with my personality. Marketing. I would venture out into events management later. And that is where I started to really traveling, to really travel. I was doing events in South Africa as well as the region, so as much as I was into corporate brand marketing events, I started feeling more like, as content as I was, there was still something that was missing, and it would take a very long time for me to figure out exactly what it is that I wanted. And I mean, if you remember when we started and I told you about the story about my grandmother trying to leave KZN for the city of gold, for the lights, I would later figure out, as things started coming together, that what I really wanted to do was to play in the travel space, because then that would give me an opportunity to make a difference. I grew up in KZN, in rural KZN, sitting, within the greatest tourism assets, but the poverty that lies, within those assets, the communities that lie there are not part of the economy. So when I realized that the difference that I wanted to make was to empower the women, was to empower the young people, who live within these tourism assets but never get to be included, in the economy, then that's when I realized that actually that is what has been missing in my life. I want to go into the travel space, and I want to make it as inclusive as I can possibly do.
Coming up.
And that's when I realized, when I got my first booking, that, oh my gosh, somebody is trusting me with their money. They've never met me, anyway. They don't know me from a bar of soap, and they're saying, we want to come. I thought about, that at some point I am going to leave corporate and to really follow my passion, which was along the travel industry, So I remember waking up one day and I said to myself, I'm going to register a company for myself, and started doing research, what does it take to register a company? I can go there directly, I can go on the internet, I can find, a consultant that does it, and pay them, they are pay with all this info, with the information and the steps that need. I was still working full time, so I didn't have the time in the world to do that. So I approached someone who's a consultant who registers companies, and I said to him, please, this is what I need. This is the type of business that I am going into. And you just need to give me a quote in terms of what I would need, what I'd need to pay you for registering. These are the names, that I have in mind, because I'd done my research and I knew that you had to at least have 3 names in case, 1 or 2 of them are already taken and you can't use them. So I gave the names and I said, okay, please register this for me. This is what I want. I, at the time, was working as head of brand for Africa and Middle East for the company that I was working for. So I had I was at the prime, of my career. I was doing well, and I had a really lovely job, so I think that was also a bit of a challenge, because everybody around me said to me, how do you leave a cushy job for uncertainty? So again, it had to take a lot of, I know who I am. I've done the research. I've done the groundwork. I am not going to be deterred. I'm going to do this come what may. So the process wasn't easy. I had a lot of doubt as well, because as much as I was saying, register this company, I'm ready, but then the noises started coming in. You are taking a risk. You are giving up everything that you've worked so hard for. Everybody would kill for this job. What is your problem? What is your plan? And I decided there and then that actually I wanted this. My vision was strong. I had faith. I was confident in my abilities. And there was this fire raging within me. Nothing, no water, no one could put it out. I was ready and I wanted it at all costs. It was exactly a year. So it wasn't immediate. I registered the company. I had my documents. I had my proper registration documents. I am BEE certified now. I've got my tax clearance. I'm ready to start. But it wasn't as easy. I've got these documents and I'm like, yay. Now, reality, needs to happen. Now I need to resign. It took me a whole year, but also it was planning. It was planning. When I resigned at this time, this is what so the year basically was for me to to gather myself. It was for me to save. It was for me to sort of like clear those debts, that when I go into this, I need to make sure that it's sustainable. I mean, I remember saying to my mom, if I need to come back home, I will need you to open up the house for me. And my mom laughed and she said, you're always welcome. This is home, but go for it. But I had those things at the back of my mind that if it doesn't work out, I will have to go back home. How will I sustain myself? How will I be able to pay this bond? How will I be able to pay this car? And. So those were things that were going at the back of my mind. And I had to prepare the people that were going to be directly affected by my decision, to go into this business. So it took a whole year to plan, to prepare, to get rid of debt, to get rid of anything, so that when I started, then I knew that the focus, I did not want any disturbances. The focus was on this baby that I was going to grow, and I was intent on making a success. So maybe just before the first event. So before the first event, I needed marketing material. I needed to convince my potential clients, that this was legit, that this was it. So I remember gathering my friends, asking my friends, on a certain Saturday, I want us to get together. We're going to a campsite. I'm going to host you. We're going to stay in tents, and we are going to have good food, and I'm going to take pictures and videos of you. My friends were like, what? Free food? We're coming. So I booked a campsite and I hired tents because I did not have a single tent. So I hired the tents and I made it all look pretty, from food to the setup inside the tents. I mean, we are glamping, so we wanted, the tents to look glamorous, to look comfortable, to look like a home away from home, even when you are in the bush. Did all the setup, and I had friends all over. We had a meal while taking pictures. I already had bought, apparel branded Glamping Adventures, and took those pictures. And then that was what then I would use for my first advert. So my first advert went out. I remember we were going out into Magaliesburg, and it was a weekend package where we would include your tents, from setting it up to fully furnished accommodation, as well as all the meals, breakfast, lunches, and dinner, and activities were part of the package. So when the advert went out, so of course I had to engage graphic designers, editors, video editors, picture editors, and all of that. The advert went out, and the booking started coming in slowly. It was exciting. And that's when I realized, when I got my first booking, that, oh my gosh, somebody is trusting me with their money. They've never met me, anyway. They don't know me from a bar of soap, and they're saying, we want to come and enjoy, the weekend with you. So the numbers started coming, and I went and I decided, okay, I'm going to go buy tents. And I think, if I bought 5 tents, I'll be okay. I bought the 5 tents, I bought the beds, the furniture, everything from your bedside tables, your lamps, from electrical equipment, because, the tents are going to be electrified. People are able to charge their devices so they get in touch with their families that back at home. Right. By the end, just before the trip, we had 20 people signed up and only 5 tents. So they were running around now looking for places where to hire tents. I found a place in Four Ways. I got the tents. It was all fine. On the day, on that weekend, the very first glamp with 20 guests. We had a wonderful, weekend event filled with activities. It was amazing. Cross-border, we had people from Botswana, Lesotho, South Africa. It was just amazing. The exchange was just out of this world. Nothing that I had imagined, would be like. And we wrapped up the weekend, people going off to the different, homes, and would then advertise the next trip. The next trip, our second trip, was 40 people. Although I had gone and bought 5 more tents from the Prophet from Magaliesberg, it was still not enough. So I went back to the hiring place and hired more tents. I could not afford more tents to buy more. So I went and hired. And then the next trip would go and buy more tents, but still it wouldn't be enough. Then I'd go back, to a point where I sit now, where I don't have to hire any more tents. We've got all the equipment, for all the people. We can comfortably take 60 people. And it's been a very intentional thing in terms of number, that we don't want to take more than that. We want our groups to be a bit intimate. We want to know everybody's name. Want to be able to create a like a community. A lifestyle travel company, like a lifestyle movement. But what's very important to me is knowing everybody that travels with us by name.
Coming up,
No, they didn't have much, but they were still able to help the community, which we grew up in. And it is something that I have always aspired to do. It is I'd say it was perhaps good mistakes, some of it. I mean, I remember when I was getting feedback from the guests, because it was glamping. So even with the food and all that, I wanted to make it all glam. I remember saying to my cooks, one from starter to, main course and dessert, it must be like this from the plating. First, my guys were like, can we just have African food? Forget the starters, the fancy, and when we got the menu right, it was just a hit. We forgot all the fancy plating, all the guys just wanted it. It is young professionals, people that are like so busy with work, with young children. They are not able to cook, the traditional food that we like so much. So definitely the menu was the biggest no. But as soon as we got that right, we had people that would follow us to different destinations, because we are a nomadic. We are roving, so we move from different destinations around South Africa and the region. So you'd find that a person has joined us like 10 times because they follow us around. So the feedback that we get and that we ask for, you know, why do you keep coming back? Why do you, you know, and I think top of it all is always the food. So we listened to what our market wanted and how they wanted it, and we worked on fixing that. You know, the question would come, or the questions would be, it's either you're a camper, you know, or you are into luxury. So why don't you just, you know, do camping, rough it up? You know, if you claim to love the outdoors, then you must rough it up. Or if you want luxury, then go to a hotel room, you know. So I always would say to the people, you know what, there are people that love and appreciate the outdoors, but they don't necessarily want to get their hands dirty. You know, they want to just arrive and everything is fully set up for them and enjoy. It is still traveling at the end of the day. The how is just what's different. So you do get, I find that sometimes it's funny how people are so passionate. You know, your staunch campers would say to me, no, this is unacceptable. If you're gonna be out there, then you gotta rough it all up. You know, what is this cushy, comfortable camping? Camping is camping. So I'm so excited. I'm happy that we managed to bridge the gap. You know, for the people that want to camp, that want the outdoors, but they want the comfort as well. You know, those creature comforts. You know, being comfortable in your bed, having, you know, Wi-Fi. You know, some people say that Wi-Fi is like oxygen. You know, so we offer that. Yeah, you can be in the outdoors, you can be adventurous, but you can still have your creature comforts. So, you know, it came also from, I spoke about my background earlier and about the women who raised me and how I saw them, you know, with, you know, they didn't have much, but they were still able to help the community, you know, which we grew up in. And it is something that I have always aspired to do. It has always been a passion of mine, you know, to be able to help and empower, you know, however way that I can. So when I saw the poverty, you know, in the various tourism assets and destinations that would visit, it would break my heart, because I felt that these people actually needed to be absorbed. They needed to be part of the ecosystem, the tourism ecosystem. So when we would go, of course, I would leave Johannesburg with my core team who would set up the tents, you know, the cooks in the kitchen who would cook, but we would always need hands. So I would then reach out to local authorities, you know, chiefs or induna, you know, from the various communities, to say, we are coming on this day and I will need 4 guys and I will need 3 women to come and help us for the whole weekend at a cost. Of course, they will be paid for it. So they would come, of course, be there for the whole weekend, and their roles would be different. Some would be constructing tents, some would be taking guests, you know, together with the guides, you know, for hiking or to the various activities. Some would be helping in the kitchen with the peeling of vegetables, washing of dishes, and cleaning up. And so we would move, for example, from the Drakensberg to Coffee Bay, or Coffee Bay to Tsitsikamma. Then I started getting calls, you know, and those calls would break my heart, because it would be, Sis Gugu, when are you coming back? You know, because when you're here, we get jobs and we can feed our families. And then I realized that that was not sustainable. I'm there sort of like once a quarter. What happens then when I'm not there? Can I not then come up with a sustainable way for these, communities to be able to make an income, to sustain themselves even when I'm not there? And I think that's when the idea of Glamping Adventures Foundation was born, to say that then this is what the foundation will look into, and that's when the idea of training, local women, especially youth in, hospitality, in filmmaking, so that they are in turn are able to package their own stories, and monetize them, so that they're able to tell their conservation stories. And I'm particularly very fond of, conservation stories, because we need to keep our environment clean. We need to sustain ourselves so that the tourists can come, and I always say to them, if we take care of our spaces, they will then in turn take care of us. So I think that's when the training, that's when the whole empowering and making sure that the communities are skilled came from. So we trained them in, then we came up with this idea that, at the end of the day, we as Glamping, I told you that we leave Johannesburg with our core team, and then we still use the guys there to help us. What happens when, we reach a point where we actually don't need to take truckloads of furniture to all these different destinations? Why don't we empower the locals to, in hospitality, in running glamping, so that they can own the glamping spaces? What we as Glamping from our central locations will be doing the marketing, and then we'll be sending all the guests to the different destinations, and we know that the people that are there are skilled, they can welcome them, and the brand will sort of like not be compromised. So that is where we are, ensuring that rural women especially claim a stake in Glamping Adventures, and they own it and they run with it.
Next time,
I wish that I listened to myself like sooner, for a lot of things in my life, but because of society, self-doubt, circumstances, right, you tend to actually give up on what it is your first idea.